Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this January 5th day of 2023. And we're getting down to the last day of the season, last games of the season in the NFL. We are a week away from the playoffs, like Jim Moore Sr. would say. We'll have all that. Update on Damar Hamlin. Also, playoff scenarios. Black Monday's coming up next week. My prediction of coaches to be fired, not just on Black Monday, but after Black Monday. Coaches that simply come up short. My predictions on that. The national championship game is Monday also. So I'll be back here in a minute and 29 seconds here on Sports Scope. Stand by, folks. We'll get this show on the road. Hello, Sports Scope followers. After 5 years of doing this program once a week, balancing a 60-hour work week job, I've decided to do the program 5 days a week, 1 hour a night, taking a significant pay cut. So I've started a Patreon page, which is Patreon, Patreon/SportsScope, spelled the same way at the bottom of the screen you see there. For $5 a month, 17 cents a day, you can help support the program. You ask yourself, why Sports Scope? Well, I bring in such big names such as Al Borges, former Auburn offensive coordinator, and I cover the big news in sports that the corporate media will not cover. If you want to contribute more than $5 a month, you can go use the Cash App. The cash tag is Sports Scope, again, spelled the same way. Or you can go to the Zelle app, sportscope@gmail.com. SportsScope has about 5,000 followers and growing. If you want to advertise on the program, you can email me. The word is SportsScope, spelled the same way again, at gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the program. Okay, now I am back here. So I was reading the Buffalo Bills website and, of course, their Twitter page here. And this is from the doctor who, I guess this is the cardiologist who has treated this Damar Hamlin, okay? They report that he is now able to communicate through writing and asked the doctors who won the game Monday night. The doctors answered, yes, Damar, you won. You won the game of life. That was pretty interesting. That was going around the internet today. Dr. Timothy Pritz said, we can't say enough about how quick the Bills training staff and the physicians who were on the field acted. It's not only the lights are on, we know that Damar is home. In other words, he's functional. He's right. He's answering stuff through writing. He is. So he still can't talk. I don't know if that was caused that medically induced coma or not, Pickles. But his hands are moving. His feet are moving. The best outcome for him is to return to who he was before this happened. Apparently, there's no brain damage. So this is nothing short of a miracle. That is not me being hyperbolic. Like I said, Monday or Tuesday when I was started the program, I actually didn't think he was going to make it. I'm not going to just kind of sugarcoat it, guys. I wasn't really optimistic coming in. Reading about this Monday night and going into Tuesday, we weren't sure if he was, how much brain damage will there be. So this is really, really a good story. Still no word whether he's going to ever play football again. That remains to be seen. According to the doctors, and Pickle says he can't speak with the ventilator in. So, yeah, he's they're still working on that part of it. But everything I read is they're very impressed with the quick his ability to heal so quickly and to respond so quickly. So there was other reports out today, and this is what I was afraid of the NFL was going to do, but I understand. according to the Associated Press, this game that was postponed on Monday night, the NFL has made the decision to cancel this game that was postponed on Monday night. The two teams played for only 9 minutes. This is on CBS before the game was stopped after, the Damar Hamlin incident. The only thing, of course, is Damar Hamlin. Now, it says scenarios. One scenario is the Chiefs. Obviously, they've played the extra game. I don't think this is ethical, if you ask me, Pickles. Chiefs in the driver's seat to get the number 1 seed. The Bills are 12-3. We're in the spot to clinch a 1 seed by winning their final 2 games over Cincinnati and New England. But the Bengals canceled the Cincinnati game. The Chiefs now would be in control for that fate for the top seed, would only have to beat the Raiders on Saturday night. That is bullcrap. That is bullcrap. Both Cincinnati and Buffalo beat Kansas City. That should not be considered. Okay? This is just from CBS through sources through the AP wire. Also, this says that the Bills can win the North. The Ravens are 10-6. Probably won't be thrilled with the Bengals cancellation because the decision will give the North to Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati will beat the Ravens anyway, so I disagree with that. Even the Ravens win on Saturday against the Bengals will put them at 11-6, puts them a half a game behind. Then it says the Bengals can't get the 1 seed. The upside for the Bengals is that the cancellation will give them the division title, but the downside, it would prevent them getting the top seed. If the Bengals had beaten the Bills, which they were up 7-3, and the Ravens to close the season, the Chiefs lost week 18. That's right. They were the Chiefs actually had a game on them. But the fact is, I just don't think the Chiefs should get it. I really don't. I don't think it should get it. Here's how. This is what Adam Schefter's saying. No 1 seed could get home field advantage or the first round bye. According to Adam Schefter, the league is kicking around the idea of giving the 1 seed the option of taking either home field advantage or getting the first round bye, and the other will get the leftover option. Okay, so I think that would be a little bit more fair. Personally, neutral site game for AFC. Another idea the league is considering would be to have a neutral site AFC championship game, but only if the Bengals or Bills make it to the game. This means if the Chiefs get the 1 seed, they would host a team seeded 4 for worse, but they would play at a neutral site game against the Bills or Bengals. This seems crazy to me. My thing is you settle it on the field. You simply settle this thing on the field. The Bills are supposed to play the Patriots this weekend. They're going to do it. The Bengals are supposed to play the Ravens this weekend. They're going to do it. The Chiefs will play the Raiders on Saturday afternoon. And, of course, the Titans will play Jacksonville Saturday night. Then next week, the Bills should play the Bengals for that top spot. But I just now realized that the Bengals do have 4 losses. So, actually, Chiefs could get that 1 seed. But the Bills are still getting robbed because the Bills have just 3 losses also, and the Bills beat the Kansas City Chiefs. That's what annoys me, okay? But that's not going to happen. So, basically, my point would be that the Bengals and the Bills play next week, and then nobody else play next week. Then you'll side the 1 seed. Of course, that would give a team like Philadelphia, who's playing the Giants, potentially 2 weeks off. Philadelphia wouldn't gripe about that. They've got a lot of injuries anyways. It would probably help them. And then you go to the regular playoff, rotation of games after that. That's not going to happen. One of these scenarios I just read will happen. Hopefully they have one where you either get the bye week or the home field. So that would be interesting. Or just simply play the AFC title game at a neutral site if the Bills or Bengals make it to the game. So that would be interesting. That would be interesting. You know, playing at a neutral site. That's probably what they'll do. But I wouldn't be. That would be interesting to see the number one get the home field advantage. I would want the first round bye. I would want the bye week because you want your players to be fresh. Helps your running back. Helps your running backs better there to get the bye week. And you know, I think, quite frankly, I think Cincinnati or Buffalo can beat anybody anywhere. But Buffalo's a hard place to play, man. That is a hard place to play in January, and they work so hard to get it. I just hate to see this end the way it is. It is what it is, but they're not. The game's just not going to get played. It's simply not going to get played, Pickles. You know, pitching NFL line that span the playoffs, yeah, and that could happen too. You know, be more money, I guess, but it would simply continue to water down the regular season, although I do kind of like things the way they are, if you ask me, folks. Okay? Okay. Let's see. What should I go to first? How about NFL playoff scenarios? Since we're talking about this now, tomorrow we'll pick the top games. I'm not going to pick every game with Carlos Madden, New Yorker Chavez, because I do think that some of these teams are not going to play their starters. Like the Giants are hinting at not playing their starters. Tampa's hinting at that. But I'll say this. Teams that have nothing to play for, that are playing division games, love to play spoiler in this situation. For example, the Rams play Seattle, and a very important game for Seattle to potentially get in. The Rams wouldn't love more than anything to knock Seattle out. Same thing with the Jets, who are eliminated, and the Miami Dolphins. Beware of that, folks. Be aware of that. Okay? We'll go over playoff scenarios. Then I'll give you my predictions of who I think will get fired Black Monday and beyond. You say, why are you saying beyond? Because beyond means a team that gets put out in the first round. They're disappointing, and the owner wants to make a change to get a better coach upgrade. That's what I mean by, a disappointing, Black Monday and beyond. Black Monday be Monday. It's the Monday where a lot of coaches are going to get fired. Well, there'll be some firings, okay? So, NFL playoff scenarios, Tennessee will play at Jacksonville with Josh Dobbs, who played last Thursday. And I did read today, folks, that Derrick Henry, he's been a full participant all week for the Titans, by the way. Jacksonville's 6-point favorites, but Derrick Henry, full participant all week. Dino Autry, full participant all week. Jeffrey Simmons, full participant all week. That's the big defensive line guys. Now, Trayvon Burks, their rookie sensational receiver here, he's got a growing injury. Not sure if he's going to play. I'm leaning towards probably not, but he really needs to try to push through that if he can. They're saying he might not play, but Tennessee is going to give these guys a well of a game, I think, with a fresh Derrick Henry and even a Josh Dobbs, who looked pretty sharp last week. There was a lot of drop passes last week. It's only his first game with them. So, if Tennessee wins, they host a playoff game. Yes, Tennessee, with their record, if they win, they will host a playoff game here in Nashville next week. Okay? But if they lose, if Tennessee loses, they currently pick 11th in the draft, Pickles. And I've been telling you guys this for weeks now. This team needs help at the offensive line. They need better draft picks. They need 2 or 3 offensive linemen. They may make a quarterback change. There's a lot of stuff on the table for this Titans teams. So if they lose, they can go to 10th, 9th, perhaps, possibly 9th, according to Tankathon. If they win and they even get put out, they may go as far as 19th. Now, of course, if they win and go to the Super Bowl, they can go all the way up to 32nd, and the Titan fans wouldn't mind that. But from 9th to 19th, that's the difference in getting probably the best left tackle or the worst left tackle. Taylor Lewan is making $14 million a year next year. He'll make $14 million. The guy's played half the games in the last 3 years. He's played half of the games. So that's something to think about if you're a Titans fan. Now, the Jacksonville could still lose, but if the Jets beat Miami and Buffalo beats New England, which I think they will, and Cleveland beats Pittsburgh, I mean, Cleveland's got Deshaun Watson, Pittsburgh's got Kenny Pickett. Who are you going to take? Cleveland's pretty healthy right now. So Jacksonville could still get in. Again, if Jacksonville loses, of course, Jacksonville wins, they're going to host a playoff game as well, Trevor Lawrence. But if they lose, again, if the Jets beat Miami, which Skylar Thompson looks to be starting for Miami. Last time he played, the Jets mugged this guy. If Buffalo beats New England, Buffalo owns New England. New England struggled to beat a banged-up Miami team last week. And, of course, if Cleveland with Deshaun Watson versus Kenny Pickett, they beat Pittsburgh, Jacksonville gets the 7th seed. Okay? Now, Green Bay this weekend, if they beat Detroit, they're in, bar none. There's nothing else to say about it. They play Sunday night. Going to be a great game. Okay? Pittsburgh. Now, they have to beat Cleveland, of course. Miami has to lose to the losses by Miami and so if Pittsburgh, check this out. Pittsburgh, what a comeback Mike Tomlin's done here. If Pittsburgh, huge win over Baltimore last week. So if Pittsburgh beats Cleveland, which could happen, they got a good defensive line, and Miami loses, which they've got Skylar Thompson, that could happen. It's already happened. And of course, the Patriots get beat by Buffalo, which we all expect. Pittsburgh's in. Pittsburgh is in. So now what about Detroit? Well, Detroit beat Green Bay. If Seattle loses to the Rams may have it in for Seattle. The Rams may want to take Seattle out. The Rams are pretty good. They beat the crap out of Denver the other day. They beat a Raider team that was in playoff contention. What makes you think they can't beat Seattle? Whether it be in Seattle or LA. Okay? So Philadelphia. If Philadelphia wins over the Giants, they get the 1 seed and they get the NFC East. What I'm hearing is Jalen Hurts is limited. It looks like the Giants are going to rest their starters. Just for me personally, Pickles, it looked, last I checked, Philadelphia looked like they were trying to run the score up on the Giants. If I'm the Giants, I go all out and try to knock Philadelphia out someday and knock them down to a wild card. That's just my thing. I remember when they were a wild card level team with nothing to play for back in 2008, and they played New England hard to beat them. Came up short to beat them in the end of the regular season of the 2007-2008 season, and later met New England in the Super Bowl and knocked them out of that perfect season. You remember that, Pickles? Okay. San Francisco. Okay, so San Francisco, if they win over Arizona, and of course if Philadelphia loses, San Francisco will get that 1 seed. Okay. San Francisco's ranked ahead of Dallas. They're ranked ahead of Dallas. They're the 2 seed right now. All right. If Dallas beats Washington and Philadelphia, like I said, if Philadelphia and San Francisco lose, that would really be crazy. Dallas get the 1 seed. That probably won't happen. Dallas may rest their starters in the second half. Now, of course, Seattle, to get a wild card, they got to beat the Rams. And, of course, Green Bay has to lose. So, and, of course, as far going back here, let me let you know who is clinched, folks. Let's see. All righty then. All right, here we go. Here I go. Okay, teams that are clinched. A playoff berth, the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, the 49ers have clinched the West. Minnesota has clinched the North. The Buccaneers have clinched the South. Dallas has clinched a playoff berth. The Giants have clinched a playoff berth. Kansas City's clinched the West. The North, technically, I guess, isn't clinched really for Cincinnati. Actually, I think Cincinnati just clinched it because of this era. And the East is clinched by Buffalo. We already know that on the AFC side. All right. So it's a lot to be a lot of good football games to be played this weekend. And again, folks, if a team don't have nothing to play for and they're going against a divisional opponent, which most of these games are going to be divisional opponents, they're wanting to knock each other out. Cleveland's wanting to knock out Pittsburgh. Because, for one thing, Cleveland wants to get better every week because Deshaun Watson's still trying to work his way in the system and get better. Plus, Cleveland's not going to get a better draft pick. Remember, Houston's got their draft pick, okay? Houston. So, teams like the Saints who are knocked out. Yeah, I think they play like Carolina or Atlanta. These teams are wanting to beat each other, So, it's not going to be the teams that the teams that don't have nothing to play for. They're going to play. Not unless they're really injured. They are definitely going to play. Okay, so Monday, Black Monday. Black Monday will come up on Monday. All right. What is Black Monday? It's the Monday after the regular season, and it is what it is, folks. People are going to get fired. Okay. For what we know right now, Carolina. I just talked about Carolina. They've already fired their coach. Okay. Detroit, Denver has already fired their coach. The Colts have already fired those three right there. It's usually 7 to 8. Okay, so those are the three we already know. That leaves without. Never mind. All right. Pickles already says Cliff Kingsbury. He knows I've been harping Cliff Kingsbury for a minute now. I've been watching him and follow him on Hard Knocks, in season Hard Knocks, and I'm telling you, these last few meetings on Hard Knocks, I've been watching the owner in the meetings, and he looks ticked off. He has this red Santa Claus looking jacket on, and he is mad that Arizona lost to Tampa Bay on Christmas night. But they did. I was watching it last week. Okay, so all right. Black Monday coming up. Like I said, Denver, Indianapolis, Carolina already fired their coach. From what I read last week, when you start hearing about teams going to evaluate the coach, Houston's supposed to evaluate Lovie Smith. They've got they're worse this year than they were last year. Lovie Smith's a defensive-minded head coach. They're 32nd against the run, guys. Okay. Plus, they had one of the top picks last year. It was really high in the draft last year. Jacksonville was number 1. So Lovie Smith was kind of, a guy hired off the same staff as David Culley. So I think Lovie Smith is going to get fired with Houston. So that would be the 4th coach. Okay. Like Pickles says, Arizona's 4-12. Possible go 4-13. Okay, they got to play San Francisco. They're probably going to go 4-13. I know they've had injuries of Kyler Murray, and you got to remember DeAndre Hopkins was suspended the first 6 games. But I remember the reading that the owner was really irritated last year when they got up to that 7-8-0 start, and they just fell apart as the season went along. Remember, they still had Hollywood Brown this year. And they had a relatively good defense, and they still didn't look good. Arizona still didn't look good. So I do think Cliff Kingsbury will be fired. So that would be 5. Okay, Cliff Kingsbury is going to get fired. Okay, Ron Rivera. I mentioned this the other day. Sam Howell is going to start. He's their rookie out of North Carolina. And he's going to start this week. Remember, we were talking a few days ago about the starting quarterback situation in Washington. Carson Wentz versus Taylor Heineke. Everybody from a mile away, even that you don't have to be really close, could tell that Heineke, that team plays better under Heineke. Is Heineke the end-all, be-all? No. I'm sure Derek Carr, they're going to try to work out something to get Derek Carr. By the way, Derek Carr has a no-trade clause, so they're going to have to possibly sell that to Derek Carr. The way he ripped out Heineke and put in Wentz the other day, they were still in that Cleveland game. He played Wentz, which cost him to get eliminated, didn't even know that they were going to get eliminated, that they were technically going to get eliminated when Green Bay beat Minnesota. So they technically are eliminated. I like Ron Rivera. He's won Coach of the Year twice. Had a bit of a mess to clean up there. It's hard to win without a quarterback. Before Cincinnati got Joe Burrow, everybody was saying that Zach Taylor was the worst coach in the league. That was not just my opinion because he was just a quarterback coach. I was hearing people like Mark Schlereth say that and other former players around the league say that. And now all of a sudden, he looks like a great coach. He does have a great coordinator, though, Lou Anarunato. But Joe Burrow makes him look great, you know. But that being said, now remember, Ron Rivera, he's went to the playoffs a couple of years ago with Heineke, got to the Super Bowl with Carolina with Cam Newton and all his antics. Newton's a good workout guy, but he's real into Cam Newton, and he never developed his passing game. Can you blame Ron Rivera for that? He had Norv Turner, a guy who won a Super Bowl as an offensive coordinator with Jimmy Johnson. So, but I think Daniel Snyder will fire him Monday. I think, and he'll use the quarterback quandary, debacle, whatever adjective you want to use. He'll use that as an excuse that he's going to look for an offensive-minded head coach. That's my guess. So Ron Rivera is going to get fired Monday in my prediction, or sometime within the next few days afterwards. Okay. All right. Okay, so we talked about Ron Rivera. Teams that made the playoffs but come up short. Okay, Dallas. Dallas will likely play. Dallas, I think Philadelphia is going to win Sunday, even with Gardner Minshew. Dallas will likely play at Tampa. Well, the last two times Tampa played Dallas, they beat them. Does Dallas have a better team, player for player? Yes. Right now, does Dallas have a better team? Yes, absolutely. But you could see the offensive line for Tampa coming together. The biggest thing for Tampa is Tristan Wirfs. Obviously, Tampa's got another game this week. I think they play Atlanta or something. It don't matter because Tampa's already clinched. But I think that they're going to play at Tampa and next week, and I think they're going to lose. And I think that Jerry Jones is going to get really irritated, and he's going to fire Mike McCarthy. If he cannot get Sean Payton, and if I'm Sean Payton, I'm still maybe waiting for Brandon Staley. But, you know, the Chargers got there. Chargers been playing pretty good lately. It's like 70-30 that Staley stays, in my opinion. I think Sean Payton's waiting for that opening. You know, I think he's waiting for that opening. There was a report, by the way, the other day that Denver would be willing to pony up $25 million for Sean Payton. Denver would be willing to pony up 20 for Jim Harbaugh. These are just rumors so far. They still have to do the Rooney Rule, interview 2 minorities outside of the organization. So the Rooney Rule still has to be applied there. Keep that in mind, okay? But so Dallas, I think Jerry Jones, I think they're going to lose to Tampa, and I think Jerry Jones will fire McCartney. If Sean Payton does not work, I think he'll hire Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn was horrible the last few years with Atlanta. Dan Quinn was not good with Atlanta. Dan Quinn is defensive coordinator material, in my opinion. I'm sorry. He is not head coaching material. But I think that Jerry Jones, being who Jerry Jones is, Pickles, he will hire Dan Quinn as a backup, and McCartney will be a free agent. Somebody may go after McCartney, okay? So those are the ones right there. Okay, Black Monday Part 2. Baltimore. Baltimore's in, by the way. They're in the playoffs as a wild card. They've clinched as a wild card. I forgot to mention that earlier. They're in. Baltimore's in. The Chargers are in. We know that. That leaves without saying. Okay, Baltimore will likely play at a Kansas City or a Cincinnati, whoever's got that seed right there. It's either way, they're going to lose. You know, Lamar Jackson's missed 5 games. All right. Okay. John Harbaugh will be forced to fire Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, or he'll get fired. Yeah, John Harbaugh. Every week I read #fire Greg Roman. It's been like this for 2 years. And the truth of the matter is that they gave up on trying to develop Lamar Jackson. By the way, this is probably going to be his 5th game missed. 5th game. You still want to pay this guy $200 guaranteed plus? Is you still going to give him more money than Deshaun Watson? So either John Harbaugh himself will be fired, or I think that since they got to the playoffs, I think that Harbaugh survives. John Harbaugh survives. But Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, will be fired. He interviewed for the Stanford job, but I never heard anything else about it. So I guess they hired somebody else. I don't know. Either way, that's a coordinator that I predict at minimum will be fired either Monday or someday next week or in the weeks to come. One time, guys, Pickles, when Jeff Fisher got fired, I'm out of Nashville. We're in Titanstown. It's the week before the Super Bowl. For whatever reason, myself and my dad, we just went down to Destin, Florida. We're down to Destin, Florida because it's no bad weather. So we drove to Destin one year. And it's the week before the Super Bowl. And I'm putting my stuff up in my room. My dad knocks on the door from his room and says, "The Titans just fired Jeff Fisher." So they waited throughout the whole playoffs. And fired him the week before the Super Bowl. And you ask why? He wanted to hire his son and all that stuff. So sometimes these things go on weeks after the fact, and we get like sucker punched, like, oh crap. Like I think Jim Harbaugh's ended like that in San Francisco. So you just can't really tell just because it don't happen on Monday. I think Lovie Smith will happen on Monday. I think Cliff Kingsbury will happen on Monday. The others, it remains to be seen. And of course, oh God, what's the guy's name? The former coach of the 2004, I want to say, Charger teams. His name will come to me here in a minute. The Charger teams with LaDainian Tomlinson, Phillip Rivers, they went 14-2 one year. And it was like 2004, 2006. I think it was 2006. And they fired their head coach. They went 14-2, and they fired their head coach. And I can't think of his name. He just died about a year ago. His son is a coach in the league. He's very conservative coach. Big run the ball, stop the run. Marty Schottenheimer. Thank you, Pickle. Pickle says Marty Schottenheimer. Yeah. He got fired at 14. Now, of course, they made a huge mistake. They hired Norv Turner, who's never been head coaching material. And then they got to the playoffs the next year, but they wasn't that tight, though. They were like 10-6. So sometimes coaches going to get fired off of just poor performance in the playoffs. I think that potentially John Harbaugh. I do think that McCarthy, they'll also find a way to screw that first game up in the wild card round. And Jerry Jones will fire McCartney. I do think that. Okay. Coordinators. I say coaches, not just head coaches. This is a big deal. The Jets, with their awful offense, lack of quarterback development. Robert Saleh says he this and that about Mike LaFleur. it's not going to be his decision. Okay. Joe Douglas and probably Woody Johnson of the Jets are going to say, hey, man, this guy's not getting it done. This guy's not getting it done. It's not the fact that Zach Wilson looks bad. Mike White looks bad. Joe Flacco looks bad. So I do think that Carlos is on to something. Carlos, if you're watching, that I do think that the Jets will fire Mike LaFleur, the offensive coordinator. Okay, I do think that. And like I said, I think the Chargers will probably keep Brandon Staley because they got to the playoffs. But if I'm running it, if I'm running things, I go out to Sean Payton. I think they'll probably win a game, maybe two, because they may get Joey Bosa back, and I know they'll get Darwin James back. I would try to go with the Sean Payton. They're not getting to the Super Bowl. They're not getting through Buffalo. They're not going to get through Cincinnati, and they're not going to get through Kansas. They're not going to get through none of those three. It's just not going to happen for the Chargers. So, anyways, but I think they'll probably keep him. It's not. I think they will keep him. And a side note, coaches that may leave. There was a report, like I said a week ago or yesterday, right? That the Rams are they were top heavy, right? And Aaron Donald for the Rams contemplated retirement after the Super Bowl. Okay, I mentioned that the Rams set the record for most losses by a Super Bowl winning team the following year ever with 11 losses. Last year, it was rumored that Sean McVay was possibly going to take a broadcasting job because he knew this was coming. He knew that this was the trade-off for getting all those star players and giving up that many draft picks. He knew that this was coming. Now, according to Pro Football Talk, that offer may come again towards Sean McVay. I think he takes that job. I think he steps down from the Rams job. Okay? I think Aaron Donald will retire this year, and I think Sean McVay is going to pull a John Gruden or a John Madden, and he's going to step away from the game for a few years, and he'll be able to name his price. He'll do some easy TV stuff, right? Then he'll be able to name his price after this. Okay, mark my word. So Pete Carroll, he's saved, overachieved, same division. Cliff Kingsbury, Arizona's going to be open. I think the Rams will be open. Okay, that's 2. Houston will be open. That's 3. That's the 3. Dallas will be open. That's 4. All right. That's his head coaching jobs that I'm pretty sure is going to be open. And of course, 5, 6, 7, that's the ones that are already open. Denver, Indianapolis, and Carolina. 7 job openings. I still think Jim Harbaugh will get one of those jobs, but he's going to be picky. And I do think Sean McVay, he's already asked me, so what about the Saints thing? Well, technically, the Saints still have Sean Payton under contract. I'm sure Dennis Allen has worked that out. If Payton decides to come back, he's just going to come back and be the coach. And Dennis Allen, which they got eliminated last week, even though I think they won. Yeah, they won, but they got eliminated. Would probably just go back to being the coordinator, in my opinion. There was a report that maybe Sean Payton would come to bring Brady with him to the back to the Saints. Okay. Also, there was a report that the Raiders would like to get Brady. I mean, they do have a left tackle. Kind of like I was saying, this Colt Miller is pretty good at left tackle. They still need some more offensive linemen, and they still need help at corner, and they probably need another pass rusher. I wouldn't go to the Raiders, but it is Josh McDaniels. They have worked together for 15 years or something like that in New England. He will have Devontae Adams. He will have Darren Waller. Hunter Renfrow would be his, Wes Welker, poor man's or Julian Edmonds. So that could come to play too. So So we're talking 7 or 8 jobs, like I said, 7 or 8 jobs. And we'll see how it plays out, folks. But and again, not all this stuff I want to happen. I'm just telling you what I think's going to happen, judging by the evidence and what I'm reading, what I'm putting together. So what do you think here, Pickles? Sean McVay out. Justin Herbert, say Brandon Staley. Baltimore should clean, and that they could clean. Baltimore drafts really well. That's the thing about Baltimore. They got a really good owner, and they got a really good general manager who is a former assistant of Ozzie Newsome, who killed it ever since he's been there since I think the late 90s into the early 2000s. Ozzie Newsome, I think he's recently retired. So possibly the Raiders, possibly Miami could be in for Brady. Tua's constantly hurt. That's something that's going to have to be looked at. People ask me at work, what do you think about Arthur Smith? They're cleaning up their cap down in Atlanta. I think Arthur Smith will be safe this year. People like Arthur Smith in Atlanta. I think the Detroit coach with Campbell, with the push they made, I think he's safe. Friend at work was asking me about Mike Vrabel. I said, well, he's coach of the year last year. They're one game from getting in the playoffs. I mean, you really can't fire Vrabel. I mean, with the success he's had, I think he's a really good coach. Could Belichick retire? Possibly. Could Woody Johnson surprise everybody and fire Robert Saleh and get an offensive-minded head coach? Possibly. I like the way the defense has responded, but they are really inept offensively. Could Mike Tomlin retire anyways and come back in a few years? That's possible, but I tell you what, he looked pretty excited these last few weeks, particularly Sunday night when they beat Baltimore like that. I think I saw a spark in him, just like I saw a spark in Kenny Pickett. Pickles says Kraft could fire Bill Belichick. Now, Bill Belichick has butted heads with Kraft. You know, they butted heads over trading Jimmy Garoppolo. Brady wanted to do away with Brady, trade Brady or cut Brady. That's what reports are. Brady pushed to get Garoppolo out of town. Kraft is a Brady guy. He could fire. That would be the biggest shocking story in the NFL, coach owner wise of the year, if you ask me. Somebody said NFL means not for long, and you know what, guys? I know this sounds crazy, but I don't know if the Colts find anybody. The way Jim Irsay's acting, could the Bears go one and done with Matt Eberflus? Possibly. Justin Fields, his play has totally deteriorated down the stretch. Could they fire their offensive coordinator? Because it looks like they've given up on trying to develop Fields as a passer. That would be shocking because they got a lot of money in the salary cap and they got some really high picks. They got a shot at the 1 pick also. They have a shot at the number 1 pick as well. I think they keep Eberflus, and it's 50-50 on whether they try another quarterback, though, really. I like Fields, but, man, he's really digressed. And possibly they may make a move at their offensive coordinator. That's something to think about. That's something to think about. Green Bay's make a big comeback. They're going to be in the playoffs. I think they're going to be okay. Pete Carroll's going to be okay. That's just about everybody. I mean, I covered the entire league. I didn't mean to do that, but this is a league. No job is really safe, you know. So, anyways, we have a national championship game coming up on Monday. It would be like Tom Landry getting fired. Yeah, it's a really good story here in Swagger about how that came about. Jimmy Johnson, really good book. Hopefully I'll get Jimmy Johnson on at some point this year. Okay, so UGA, Georgia is 12.5-point favorites over TCU. Now, this is going to be played in SoCal, by the way, SoCal Stadium. I think that's where the Rams play, right? SoFi Stadium. Maybe they play in the same stadium. I don't know. Either way, it's not going to be played in New Orleans. It's not going to be played in Atlanta. It's not going to be played in Dallas. That's a true neutral site. TCU will probably have a big crowd there, but Georgia travels really well. TCU may have them outnumbered. Now, I did read it. Like I said, Georgia, last I checked on FanDuel, they're 12.5-point favorites. TCU will be without running back, possibly Kendra Miller, who had a knee injury. Kendre Miller. I did note this, folks. TCU win an overtime win. They win overtime. They finally beat Oklahoma State. They lost in overtime to Kansas State. It was a one-score game against Texas, one-score game against Kansas, one-score game against SMU, one-score game against Michigan last week. It turns midnight for TCU. Georgia, long layoff with Georgia. Ohio State really told how bad they were from the time they lost in late November to the time they played Georgia. And you get a little help from the refs early in the game to keep the advertisers, to keep people watching, to make the advertiser happy. They barely win a shootout against Ohio State. This week, their timing is going to be right. Georgia's a much deeper team. Georgia's used to playing at Alabama than playing an LSU. TCU had 7 losses last year. They were 200-1 to reach the national championship. I read that TCU is the longest shot ever to reach the playoffs. There's no telling what their plus minus was. That's just odds 200-1. It's probably way more than that to make the national championship. I just think that it's going to run. It's going to turn midnight. Pickles likes TCU. Only way TCU wins this game if Georgia has a massive amount of turnovers, the way that Miami did against Ohio State in the 2002-2003 national championship, and Ohio State, led by Maurice Clarett, helps them win that national championship. I don't think that's going to happen. I think things kind of come back to earth. And to me, it feels like a 34-20 Georgia game. I won't bet it, but I'm just calling like I see it. I'll ask Carlos tomorrow what his prediction is for TCU and Georgia. We'll see how this thing plays out. I just let's see. Pickle says Stetson Bennett's overdue to lose a game. Battle quarterbacks, the TCU, yeah. Well, you still got to run the ball a little bit, though. Their running backs got a knee problem, and I didn't see any injuries on Georgia. I didn't see any major injuries for Georgia. Georgia would be able to bounce back easy from a game like this. TCU just come off a game where they were major underdogs. It's hard to win as a major underdogs in college week after week. NFL, it's happened before. It's more likely that a road team can win in neutral site games week to week in the NFL because, the talent level is pretty easy, though, pretty even. But if you think about college football, think about the SEC. When you're a big underdog, you get a big upset like that. And then you got to go on the road and play you're a bigger underdog the next week. You're 12.5-point favorite. It's harder to do that in college football. For instance, like, say if a Tennessee played like an Alabama, they just barely knocked out an Alabama. Then you got to go play a higher ranked LSU or vice versa. It's really hard to do that 2 weeks in a row. Remember, Georgia was favored by 7 points, 5 to 7 points against Ohio State. It should have won by 10 to 14. But, with the refs helping you out there and the sloppiness, all that'll be tightened up. See, that was knocking the rust off of that 4.5 week layoff there, a month-long layoff. So that I think Georgia wins their second. Think about this. So Georgia, they win their second national championship, and Kirby Smart. This guy, like I was telling Carlos last week, they're going to be naming streets after this. He may even get a statue. I don't even think that the last coach, I forgot his name now. It'll come to me here in a minute because his son used to coach at Tennessee. He just died here about a year or so ago, or a little bit less than that. The one with Herschel Walker in 1980. I think he simply won one national championship. Yeah. Vince Dooley. Vince Dooley is who his name is, Pickles. His son, Derek Dooley, used to coach at Tennessee. Horrible coach. Not even really offensive coordinator. He became a wide receiver coach with Dallas. And he had words with Des Bryant. Didn't really gel well. But son was a horrible, horrible coach. Really good coach. I think he was a really good AD there for years. They won a national championship. I think they lost to Pittsburgh team that I want to say Johnny Majors. Wasn't he the coach of that team that Pittsburgh won? And then that team ended up going, that coach ended up going to University of Tennessee, ironically. But they did win a national championship with Walker, but I think they lost one to Pittsburgh. And Pickle says that he has a statue. Yeah. So my question is, do you put a statue of Kirby Smart? Maybe you name a street after. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of all that stuff. That's idol worship. I know that I want to say that Nick Saban's got one down in Alabama, and I want to say that Bear Bryant's got one at Alabama. Joe Paterno did have one, but after the scandal, they took it down in Penn State. And yeah, Tony Dorsett, that's the running back I was trying to think of. He had Tony Dorsett. I don't remember the quarterback. It was not, I thought they had Dan Marino then, but Dan Marino was before that. He was before that team. But that Pittsburgh team did beat Georgia one year. I watched a documentary on it. And then the other year, I think they lost 2 or 3. And they ended up winning one. And one of them was with, obviously, Herschel Walker. Played really well at 1980 national championship led by Herschel Walker. And now that I think about it, I think year after that, Johnny Majors left, but I think they won a national championship after that because Dan Marino came there and he left in 82, 83 because remember he was drafted in the famous 1983 draft. So Pittsburgh was really good back in the day. Georgia and Pittsburgh, they were really good college football teams back in the day. Clemson in the late 70s was really good, I found out. Woody Hayes in 1978, I saw this on a documentary going back to that era. He ended up punching a player from Clemson in the stomach in a game. Of course, that's the last game he ever coached, a former Ohio State coach there, Woody Hayes, Pickles, if you remember that. So I'm a big football. Swagger's a really good book. I'm about 80 pages into this book here. It's only got about 300 something. I'm going to try to get Jimmy Johnson on here in the next few weeks, either through Jim Jeffcoat. I'll tell you what, guys, if Dallas does play Tampa going back to the NFL, I'm going to try to get Jim Jeffcoat on, and I'm going to ask him what does he think that would happen if Dallas, which I expect them to do, goes down there and find a way to lose to Tampa, does he think that Dallas will fire McCartney? I'm going to get him on there. He played on this Jimmy Johnson team. Yeah, Pickle says Woody Hayes lost his mind. Yeah, I mean, he's seen, I was watching some documentaries on him, and Hayes is a guy that he seemed like a really good teacher. He seemed like a good teacher. He was a stern disciplinarian, kind of reminded me of Bobby Knight a little bit. But, I've seen that where he hit that Clemson player. I think it was like a bowl game or something. He just walks up and just punches this guy right up under his solar plexus. And, of course, it was the last game he coached. It was just idiotic. It did look like the Clemson player was toning, but, I mean, you're a coach there. That's a college kid. I mean, you got to take the higher ground, So anyways, folks, I'll be back tomorrow here with Mad New Yorker. We'll break down some of these games. That Tennessee-Jacksonville game, I think that game will be very close. Even if Trayvon Burks don't play, I'm leaning towards Jacksonville. I know that they got Trayvon Walker back, their pass rusher. He's playing really good football. Jacksonville's playing really good football, but Tennessee's coming off a bye week. And they got a guy like a Derrick Henry coming off a bye week. That ain't going to be an easy that is not going to be an easy win for the Jags like it was earlier. I will predict that. I'll give you that right now. So that's one of the bigger. And of course, Detroit, Green Bay. Detroit's playing really well, but Green Bay's playing that much better right now. But that is in Green Bay. That's going to be Sunday night. Detroit, Green Bay's in. They're in if they win. And that has something to do with Seattle and the Rams and Seattle game. That's going to be a good game. Both coaches want to knock each other out, And Pickle says, yeah, the Titans, the year they went to the Super Bowl, people don't realize this. The year they went to the Super Bowl, they went down to Jacksonville and beat them. Check this out. For the third time that year. They beat Mark Brunell for the third time that year. That Jacksonville team, who Tom Coughlin was the head coach, really good coach there, and Fred Taylor had Jimmy Smith had a good team. Tennessee beat them 2 times in a regular. That's the only time that they lost. Mark Brunell was an MVP candidate that year. They were 14-2. 2 losses to the Titans. Everybody said Jacksonville would beat them the third time. Tennessee, big special teams play towards the end, beats Jacksonville for the third time down there to get to the Super Bowl. And I remember telling my brother-in-law at the time, I said, if Tennessee makes it to the Super Bowl, we got about 4 inches of snow. I said, I'm going to dive right through that snowman outside. I'm going to be so happy. And, as soon as the game ended, we were really excited. It was the first year the Titans had came to Nashville, became the Titans. So I dove through the snowman outside. And I didn't realize that my nieces were real sympathetic towards the snowman. They're crying and stuff. So I feel bad because I dove through the snowman. But we're happy because the Titans made it to the Super Bowl. Only to lose to the Rams, come up 1 yard short of tying it. But it's a good moment. Yeah, so it was through Jacksonville that they did it. So that's going to be an interesting game Saturday night. And, of course, the Kansas City game still has 1C meetings with the Raiders as well. The Raiders are going to try to beat them. The Chiefs were down big early to Kansas City last time they played. The Raiders are going to throw everything out there that the kitchen sink to beat them. Josh McDaniels, he really wants to make the resume for him to stay on as a coach there and build on what they got. So that's going to be a good game. That's not going to be a poo-poo game. That'll be a pretty high-score game, Davante Adams versus that secondary, which Stidham actually played pretty well against the 49ers last week. So anyways, again, we'll be back on tomorrow. Me, Mad New Yorker, break down all these games. I'll get his opinion on the national championship. And, of course, that's the best news of the week. Damar Hamlin using his faculties, no brain damage. It's really making a lot of progress. A flat out miracle up there in Buffalo. So have a good night, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Here on Sports Show. Yeah, Pickle says I killed the snowman. Yeah.